that, I think we can get things started and introduce today's speaker. Mary Barrell is the president of TalentEgg and is an online business executive and lawyer with a background in media, technology, and IP law. A former CBC journalist and TV producer, in 2013, she was appointed General Counsel and VP of Media Affairs at CharityVillage.com. In 2016, Mary took the reins as president of TalentEgg, Canada's #1 award-winning job board and online career resource that connects top employers with top students, grads, and early career professionals with highly targeted and engaging employer branding and recruitment services. Clients of TalentEgg include award-winning global enterprises, nonprofits, and other exceptional Canadian employers committed to recruiting the best young talent and developing the leaders of tomorrow. Mary is a certified employer branding professional recognized by Universum Global and the International Employer Branding Academy. Welcome, Mary. It's so good to have you back presenting for us today.
Marina, it's a great pleasure on my part. I'm delighted to be here and really very excited about talking about how I think that the not-for-profit sector and employers in that sector can actually leverage some of their strengths that they're not even aware of in their employer branding and recruitment strategy. I wanted to start off by just giving an idea of where we're going in this presentation. I want to start by giving a little brief introduction of what TalentEgg does and some TalentEgg by numbers statistics about the community that we serve, and then also look at strategies and data that we've pulled from our own surveys, but also from independent sources from North America, talking about employer branding and how important it is for any employer in their recruitment strategy, and then taking a look at how we can adapt that information, those strategies to the not-for-profit sector to really leverage the strengths that they already have and may not be aware of in terms of their employer brand in recruiting young people to become their employees. We then want to look at something that we are very excited about presenting, which is our National Recruitment Excellence Awards that comes up in June. We have awards and a conference where we share best practices and trends and knowledge, but we've also introduced some important new categories that is strictly focused on the not-for-profit sector, and we want to encourage the not-for-profit sector to consider applying for these awards because we think it's really an important part of their employer brand strategy. So just with that little introduction, I'll get things going. Just so that you understand who and what we really are in the space, an online space where we provide a lot of free career education for young people who are trying to make the school to work transition or who might be in the workplace and making a transition from one role to another or potentially from one sector to another with free online advice for making the best application possible. And also we are in the business of providing our expertise and our services in helping important employers and small employers in strategizing around how they can use their best recruitment activities to find the best and the brightest and engage them and attract them to become employees of their own. Here are some examples of the employers that we work with. We have a very targeted demographic. It's used by 18 to 30-year-old career-oriented, ambitious, educated young people who may be making the school to work transition or who might already be in the workplace and are still finding their way and looking for an opportunity that will really compel and inspire them. We have over 290,000 users per month on average, which we're very proud to have been able to build over 12 years of our lifespan in the online career resource space. We have an interesting demographic for a lot of our employers. We have a majority of our users being female, and that's really important for a lot of our employers who are interested in diversity hiring. And so those numbers are supported by the kind of users that we actually attract to our services. We have nearly 230,000 registered users. Those are people who've come to our services and registered to learn more about the employers that we represent, or job opportunities in the area of study or practice that they are currently in and in the industries that they're interested in exploring. So I'll talk a little bit more about how we do that and use that to target potential candidates that are a right fit for every employer. We are, as Marina, you mentioned, part of a family of career website, and combined, we have a reach over 900,000 users per month and over 3 million page views per month. For those of you who might not know Be Meaningful focuses on careers with social impact. The demographic is broader than TalentEggs. It may be somebody who's taking an early retirement, or maybe a senior person who's very interested in working in a space that gives them some fulfillment by having social impact, or it might be a for-profit corporation but in a corporate social responsibility role, for example. So they wouldn't necessarily be eligible to post jobs on Charity Village. So it's a very interesting demographic. It's our startup, our baby sister. So we recognize that it's a really great way to also do a lot more employer branding on the Be Meaningful space that is still focusing on a community that is engaged in providing social impact, environmental, and those kinds of very important missions. For our annual clients, we provide unlimited job listings, and the important part for you to know is that a client that's a nonprofit has an opportunity to cross-post to our sister companies, Charity Village and Be Meaningful, for free. And we also scrape jobs from our clients. So we have a tool that goes out, takes the jobs in, we curate them for the appropriate kinds of roles for our demographic of 18 to 34-year-olds, and we post them for you. And also an important thing for you to know is that for nonprofits, TalentEgg offer its all-out services at a 25% discount. So we really feel that it's an important part of the entire employment sector is the not-for-profit world, and we do appreciate the contribution to the entire workplace and workforce that nonprofits actually offer, and we want to encourage you to consider TalentEgg as a way to help you recruit younger people and build that talent pipeline for the future. We also are very proud to offer the most comprehensive free volunteer job board that's curated for young people. So if you're looking for young people to volunteer for some of the things that you're working in the community, we're a great place to come to. We also take a feed from Charity Village of their job board for volunteer positions, and we curate it to take the most important and for most appropriate kind of roles for young people to take part in. We really believe it provides young people an opportunity to give back, but also develop important soft skills, networking, and a real capacity to be able to actually get real world experience in the workplace. So it's very much part of what we like to bring to our candidate pool. Our real sort of differentiating factor is that we're in the business of employer branding. So we support employers in bringing their story that's relevant to young people, young job seekers, and give them a bigger profile and a unique place on our website among our community of job seekers to be able to really amplify their employer branding and tell their stories about what it's like to actually work within that organization. So we create these employer branding sort of spaces that are customized to our employers, and an important part of that is to actually have lots of information about the real world experience that their employees are experiencing, especially young people. And we also have a place there where we celebrate their excellence with, making a very high profile space for their awards and industry recognition. And I'm highlighting that part because I do want to later on in this presentation talk about how you can get potentially become a finalist or a winner of an award that can set you apart in the not-for-profit sector as really an employer of choice, and to celebrate your team's work. So I'm going to be bringing a little more information about that later on in the presentation. So the whole idea really of these awards are, while it does provide a conference, a place where people can meet and describe best practices and discuss new trends, It's a great way to celebrate your culture and in your employees. It's a wonderful way to support your employee engagement with your employees, and to be recognized as a sector leader, not just as what you do in the important kind of work you do for the community as a nonprofit, but also to be recognized as an industry leader, as a top employer of choice. It's a great way to amplify your employer brand. You're able to take that designation as a winner or a finalist and be able to use it on all your media. And by doing so, that helps you attract new talent because you've been essentially certified as a great place to work. And so we want to give nonprofits a greater opportunity to be able to blow their own horn and really tell their story in ways that can be compelling to young job seekers. We spend a lot of time and effort in working on a survey that we do nationally from coast to coast every year, and we pull data about this particular demographic of young people, Gen Y and Z. And what we've discovered is they are, we think of them as really being digitally focused and focused on their screens, but under that and at the heart of that is really true passion and impact as being a compelling part of what makes them look for and seek out opportunities for their careers. 74.7% of grads ranked social responsibility in the corporate world as important to very important in their decision as to where they would like to work. And 80% of Gen Z, as you might be aware if you're in Ontario, reported that they volunteer at least sometimes. So they're used to understanding the world of volunteer work. They also understand the importance of giving back and having social impact and being involved in the community in which their employers actually are actually functioning in. And also, nearly a third of Gen Z students said that they would take a 10 to 20% pay cut to work for a cause that they deeply care about. So these are young people that are hungry for opportunities where they can match their passion and their energy to things that they see as important to the community and on causes that they feel passionate about. And that really is something that the nonprofit sector should be aware of when they're thinking of recruiting the next young person that they want to bring into their organization and to build a pipeline of candidates that are from that demographic, is to really understand the importance of their position as contributing to the betterment of society as being really a key component of what can be part of their employer brand. And I have some ideas about how you can do that. But really, as I mentioned, purpose-driven storytelling is truly the killer app for nonprofits. I was on a panel at the CPA Forum for Nonprofits in Vancouver just a week ago, and really that's what we discussed on our panel, is this idea of purpose-driven storytelling. And it's key to a nonprofit that's interested in recruiting young people to their cause and bringing them into the fold as an employee. And I think if you take a step back, I've sort of observed that nonprofits are really experts at building awareness and driving engagement for their causes and the social impact work that they actually do. They are great storytellers. And they're also really good at telling the story of the people and the causes that they're actually helping in order to support their fundraising activities. But they also have a wonderfully compelling story to attract job seekers, the ones that I've been describing, who are hungry for a career with purpose and an opportunity to have personal fulfillment beyond just a paycheck. And there's a lot of young people who are very motivated by that. In fact, for-profit corporations are clearly aware of that. And they are, in fact, your competitors for talent. And what they do and what we help them do at TalentEgg is to integrate their corporate social responsibility activities into their employer branding and their employee engagement to compensate for some of the other things that are about their brand that may not be as positive, and to overcome this idea of working for a big corporation. So it's important that I think nonprofits understand that what they do is already a compelling piece of the puzzle when you're trying to put together an employer brand. And I really believe that the majority of nonprofits don't really understand this competitive advantage in the talent acquisition and employer branding space. And so I'm on a mission really to sort of spread the word and also to give you a little bit of advice of how you can do it in a pretty effective and fairly cost-effective way. Really shining the light on your employees and your organization's mission is part of the secret. We know that 83% of talent acquisition leaders in North America believe that employer branding is significantly impactful on the quality of the hires that they're able to attract. So employer branding is really important for every employer. It's believed to work best when it's authentic, with an authentic purpose being most engaging for millennials and Gen Z. So authenticity is really key with this, and authentic storytelling has been recognized, especially by engaged employees who have something to say about what it's like to work at that organization, is truly an impactful way to support your talent recruitment strategies. And you know, I think all of us know that while data does persuade, it doesn't inspire action. And so telling the story that fires the imagination and stirs the soul, that's what the Harvard Business Review noted, is really the way to compel or to engage a person enough to actually apply for that role at your organization, or to follow your organization and the work that you do in order to wait for that opportunity to come up. So really, employees are the best storytellers for employer branding. And I do understand, though, that nonprofits can sometimes feel that that's quite difficult for them. Of course, there's tight budgets and limited resources. That's the world in which the nonprofit sector finds itself. And often I get this sort of feedback from nonprofits that there's a kind of an ick factor, that in some ways it's just too salesy and it doesn't feel comfortable. But purpose-driven storytelling doesn't have to be salesy, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Really, the key is to try and think about how you can reframe the social impact you're making to include the people in your organization who are making it happen. So reflecting your employer brand with your employees' passion about the work that they do every day is a true, authentic way to actually engage more people to want to join your group and your team and to feel that same sort of passion. And so it's important that you think about ways that you can reflect your employer brand using your employees' passion for what they do in the media and on the platforms that job seekers prefer to use for career information. And a lot of these platforms you're already using. I just want to identify some data points around this. You know, there's been a lot of studies that when you're talking about working conditions, culture, and values, the voice of the employee is 3 times more credible than any C-suite kind of representation can be. And the things like working conditions, culture, and values are really the 3 pillars of employer branding. It's really about what does that organization stand for internally for the employees. And so your employee's story and their engagement with the kind of work that they do is your most powerful tool. And social media channels, many of which you are already using as part of your outreach for fundraising, for awareness, for attracting volunteers, can also serve you in your employer branding by giving a window into company culture. It's a great way to reflect and allow your employees to actually be featured within that outreach on social media. We know that, for example, 21% of Facebook users are actually using it all the time for employer information. So understanding that, you can use that platform and other social media platforms to really tell your story in an engaging way. 82% of high school and 69% of post-secondary students always prefer video. Video is truly king, and they like it for career-related information. And as you probably know, if you know any young people, they use it for a lot more than that in terms of, you know, getting information, actually training themselves on YouTube videos to learn certain skills. But it's also a way that they communicate and learn about their world and they use it a lot for career information. So that's also an advantage that you may already be using, and you just have to tweak it so that you're using it for your employer branding instead of some of the other important purposes that you're using. So 98% of employees use at least one social media site personally, and 50% of those are already posting about their job. It's part of our life, and particularly in the non-for-profit sector, where there's so much passion and resolve and determination, it's very much a part of, it's integrated into a lot of your employees' lives. And I would encourage employees to really blow their own horn on social media about the impact that they have made in their job, and also what they're doing in their job and how much that is inspiring. So making sure that they don't just say what they're doing, but also how that's making them feel. Because those are important stories to tell, not just for your recruitment, but also your employee engagement, the team that you have in place. It supports that sort of idea that everyone is involved in something that's more important than themselves. So emotion is really the thing that creates engagement, and the not-for-profit sector and the good work that you do every day is the kind of emotional sort of resonance that you can have in your employer branding, and really is a powerful tool for you. So we mentioned that employer branding video is really king. And for Gen Y and Z, that couldn't be more true. So it's being able to tell your story through video. You probably use video in some of the other work that you do. If you're shooting videos about some of the work you're doing, spend a little bit of time and get a couple of clips from your employees that might be actually being shot within that organization. I'm giving you this sort of screen grab of a video that we actually produced for a for-profit corporation, and they felt it was critically important for them to tell the story to young people about how they give back to their community. And the company that we did this video for was Mercedes-Benz Financial Services. So my point about the kind of work that you do being a compelling story of your employer brand and what you live and breathe every day is very powerful. And corporations that are for-profit know that, and they integrate their community involvement into their employer branding, something that you can do very naturally. For example, we produced a video at Charity Village with the United Way Greater Toronto area and the Biana Family Foundation. And that was to celebrate heroes in the social services sector who had won the Biana Family Foundation awards. But when you look at them another way, they're really employee stories about people who are passionate about what they do. And they can be, in large part, used as part of the employer branding of the organizations that these people work for. So it's a way of sort of reframing the way you're looking at the content you might already be creating and utilizing them in new ways that is in addition to what you're already doing. So again, your employees' passion for the cause that they support is really your competitive edge in the competition for talent. Now, sometimes these video productions are not cheap, and if a professional video production is out of your budget, you should really think about other low-cost alternatives to bring to life your employer branding in video. So Instagram employee takeovers are a super fun way for you to use your social media. Your Instagram stories are a new form that it's really the #1 platform for Gen Y and Z. Some of you may already be using it for a lot of your outreach. It's also job seekers' #1 preferred social media platform. Takeovers are a fun way to allow your employees to put together a minute-long story, Instagram story that comes directly from them. And we actually do this for our clients a great deal, but we would encourage you, if you have an Instagram account, to use the storytelling method, which is an easy way to do low-cost videos using just your phone and being able to disseminate that on the Instagram channel. So we also do work with these clients where they are able to take over our account. So we have what we call TalentEgg takeovers. So we turn over our Instagram account to our clients and let their employees create fun, engaging stories on our platform and use our services to expand their own social media reach on Instagram with job seekers and to engage directly with the TalentEgg followers of students, new grads, and early career professionals who are looking for work. So I would encourage you to think about your own platforms as a way of not just telling the story of the causes you support and the important work that you do, but also to highlight your employees and how passionate they are about the work that they do as a way of engaging potential job seekers. Another platform that we use a lot is live social media events on both Facebook and Instagram. We do them simulcast, where we tell the story of the employer interviewing the recruiter, or sometimes it might be your head of HR, or if it's not, if you don't have a department or an HR head, then it could be about any of your employees that could speak to what it means to them to work with that organization and why it's great for them to, why it'd be great for the job seeker to come and consider them as a potential employer. What we do with our clients, in fact, we just left one, half an hour ago before doing this webinar. We do them for our clients to be able to give them a chance to interact live to questions that come in on social media from job seekers. And you're able to find out what job seekers are looking for, and also to have a real authentic conversation on those platforms to engage with young people on the platforms they like to use to learn more about employers. So again, you can use social media in post form, in many other forms as part of your on-campus outreach, or if you're not on campus, simply within your communities to be able to disseminate your employer branding. And some of the work that we do for employers in the nonprofit sector. Again, you probably have, many of you may have an email sort of marketing platform in the sense of you utilize it for outreach to your community of volunteers or people who are fundraisers or people who just follow the work that you do. You could add an opt-in for news about job opportunities and career events with your organization as a part of a tool that you could use so that you can target some of those people who've expressed an interest in your jobs and in working with your organization. It's yet another tool that you may already have in the toolbox, but tweaking it for the purposes of being able to attract new talent to your organization. We have a platform where we are able to target young people based on the schools that they go to, their location, their career interests, what they're studying. And that's how we target job seekers for our clients. And it helps us make sure that we're matching up the opportunities to the people that are the ideal sort of candidate for our employers. A lot of you will have a web presence. Most of you, I'm sure, do. It's easy to be able to find space on your website to be able to potentially market your jobs in a very high profile area on your website. You can have clickable links back to, say, if you've posted your job on Charity Village, for example, and they can apply through that platform or portal, and we can manage that whole application process for you. Alternatively, we do work with not-for-profit organizations who are trying to get a higher profile among our followers and our users who are the 18 to 34-year-olds job seekers who are might be interested in engaging with that particular employer or organization. And another way to really do service to your employer brand and building your employer brand and awareness of what a great employer you actually are is to really blow your own horn. And it's pretty hard to do that all by yourself. It helps to actually win some awards. And so what we've created is a national awards for recruitment excellence and employer branding. And we've, as I mentioned, I think there's many sort of win-win sort of experiences you can have from that by not just supporting your employees in the work that they do every day and helping celebrate that, but positioning yourself as a sector leader and to actually, by supporting your employer brand, attract new talent when you're looking for work. Our awards take place on June 2nd this year in Toronto. So we have lots of, and I'll give you the actual website that you can find out more information. But at this stage, I'd really like to sort of encourage you to think about applying for these awards, and also to give you some tips about how to really create a compelling application to increase your chances of becoming a finalist and winning an award. So we actually have opened new categories for the not-for-profit sector, which I think are really exciting opportunities for you to actually get a higher profile, both within your sector and more broadly among potential candidates. They include things like Recruiting Program of the Year for a nonprofit, Recruiter of the Year, the individual person who's like extraordinary at bringing in talent, the best social media presence, best use of student competitions for recruitment if you're interested in campus, best recruitment branding strategy by a professional industry association. We work with a lot of nonprofit professional and industry associations, and they do a lot of education work with young people, and so we thought that was worth acknowledging. Best career website, and there's a whole lot more. In fact, there's 18 categories in total, some specifically just for nonprofits, so you're not put in a position where you're competing against the for-profit organizations that may have bigger budgets for you than you might have. We are really proud of having a very unique and authentic judging criteria. All the applications that come in are judged by top job candidates themselves. So we actually recruit them. They have to apply to be a judge, and they do so because they get a chance to be highlighted in front of potential employers and included on a panel at the conference that we hold as part of our awards ceremony. The great thing about the advantages of applying for an award is that we will give anyone who applies for an award confidential feedback from the judges on the applications upon request. You just have to reach out after the event, and even if you win, it's always good to know directly from the candidates what is really resonating them with the job seeker. And I think that helps craft your employer brand and the kind of strategies that you're using. And also learn how you can, potentially make improvements. And all of that is provided to you on a confidential basis. And it's anonymized information from our group of student judges with actual sort of anecdotal sort of comments back, as well as an analysis. So it's very valuable information for you. And again, we provide that following the event. So if we look at the 6 tips that we wanted to offer you, you start by, of course, getting organized, deciding which award categories best fit your initiatives. And as I mentioned, there's 18 of them, so there should be lots for you to choose from. Obviously, shortlist the ones you want to apply for, and make sure you carefully read through the descriptions to ensure your efforts meet the outlined criteria. The next step would be to gather your materials. Each award submission is really composed of 2 parts. We try to make it as straightforward as possible. The first part is a mandatory online application with a short form giving some, brief data and description of who you are, and a brief description of the initiatives that you are actually referring to in your application for the specific category. The second component is the supporting documentation that is to be presented in a PDF format and attached with the application form. So we ask you to compile all the documentation into one PDF file, and that's to ensure that our judges in the transfer of information get your entire application and that nothing is lost and you get a fair chance in the assessments. And so we would also encourage you to embed links to any sort of online presentations or websites or other types of media that can help support your application and demonstrate the impact of your efforts, both in terms of you as a nonprofit organization giving back to the community, but also your efforts of giving a really great experience for your employees, and what it means to work for your particular organization to the employees that are part of your team. We wanted to we've really noticed over the years that judges tend to favor applicants who really support their achievements with some solid evidence. And we want to give you some tips on what those ways of doing that might be. So the first thing is, of course, know your audience. You're going to be judged by top students, new grads, early career professionals. Remember, they may be 18 to 34 years old, and really they are your target audience for your recruitment initiatives to be able to build a talent pipeline to young people that you want to attract to your organization. So you obviously need to tailor your application for a younger demographic, and that means, as clear communication always suggests, avoid industry jargon, using terminology that anyone can understand, and also doing so in a friendly voice that is appealing to Gen Z and Y. It's good if it's casual and conversational while still maintaining some professionalism, but remember who it is that's going to be looking at this application. It's important that you engage with them in ways that they like to communicate, and speak directly to the wants and needs of those people, in the sense that identifying why you're using these particular sort of strategies in order to be able to touch on what they desire or their pain points that you're responding to, helps sort of engage them in understanding that you've really thought about what young people are looking for in their careers and in their employers. Number 4, show your work. So really it's about showing and not telling. Visual appeal makes your application stand out. For this demographic in particular, as you know, with all the media that they consume every single day in all forms, especially in the digital world, having a way of making a compelling application that is visually appealing is super important. Also, something that's easy to consume. So quantitative data like statistics and percentages do strengthen your application in terms of providing, a backbone to what you're submitting in terms of the results. But do so in a style that is consistent with your other career and recruitment material, especially if you are linking back by those embedded links in the PDF to online resources or your website. Keeping that consistency throughout really makes the application that much more appealing. So we really encourage you to incorporate visual evidence. So screenshots, logos, videos of the work you might have done. Really illustrate your application, highlight the impact your organization makes, and also how that makes your employees feel. Include pictures of any sort of young person that you might have working for your organization. And really help personalize that message so that the judges can better connect on an emotional level with the people within your organization, not just your cause, which of course is important, but also the people that they would potentially want to work with. Again, seeing is believing. Linking, I can't tell you how important it is to linking to authentic images or video to really bring your brand to life. Keep it concise. All of us are busy. Our judges are looking at a lot of submissions, and guess what? They're of the demographic that, the statistics say that they have a shorter attention span. So it's much more compelling if you can keep it concise. Text-heavy applications don't appeal. Try to use some, more visual tools. Provide as much detail and visual sort of data as possible, but try to keep it concise. Use ways that are easy to understand if you're providing data with bulleted lists, infographics, or graphs to convey more sort of complicated ideas or concepts around your results. And providing any links to social networking accounts or online media really helps sort of bring it to life for the judges and supports what you've been saying about, giving evidence on media that they find appealing about the kind of work that you do and the team that you have that does that work every day. And again, we would like you to keep that in a single PDF document using those embedded links to the external sort of content. And, finally, be creative. It's really about creating a submission that stands out from the competition so you can have some fun. This is it's not a serious, it's a serious concern to actually try to attract and build a pipeline of young talent, but it's also meant to engage and be informative and fun. And also a great experience for your employees to become part of. So ensure that you leverage other media and new technology that you're already using as part of your application. Again, use infographics and graphs to relate data in a visually appealing way that's easy to consume and understand. Make sure that it's accessible and concise and easy to navigate. And throughout, don't forget what I call your competitive advantage for the not-for-profit world is that you're full of people and opportunities where one can have careers that are inspired with passion and purpose, something that really compels and engages young job seekers today. So, you know, make that really the touchstone of your employer branding. And if you follow these tips, you'll be extremely well equipped to make a really good application to the awards. And we really encourage you to do that for all the reasons that we've mentioned. We think it's a win-win all the way around. And you should be singing your praises and letting people know what a great employer that you actually are. And so I wanted to just stop now and respond to any questions that you might have either about the awards or some of the strategies that I've talked about where, you know, about utilizing some of the things that you're already doing as part of not just your outreach for fundraising or for volunteers, but also to be able to pivot them slightly and think about how you can reframe them as being part of your employer brand and doing that on an ongoing basis. You know, I've got lots of examples that we can discuss. And, you know, I really encourage you that to make the most of what your, you know, your real killer app is, which is careers with purpose and passion. And so I'd like to turn it over to any questions that you might have.
Wonderful. Thanks, Mary. Gosh, you had so much good information in there. And we've got some really great questions coming in, so we'll dive right in. But if you do have questions for Mary, please pop them in the question box and we'll get to as many as we can today. So first off, Mary, do you find that this approach also applies to recruiting volunteers?
Absolutely. I think that's an excellent question. I should have actually talked about it. I think, you know, particularly if you want to build out sort of a force of volunteers among young people, these strategies are really just as applicable when you're trying to recruit volunteers. I think young people need to see the opportunity to what kind of social impact they might be able to make, and the more visual and the sort of more emotional that you can be in that sort of messaging is, I think, is extremely powerful. We are all compelled by that, but I think in particular some of the strategies on social media, that sort of sense of feeling like their volunteer work will not just give them marketable skills and transferable skills when they go to work, you know, as part of a job, but that their volunteer work is part of their whole personality as being something that they can do that is meaningful to them personally and giving back to the community. I have to actually, I want to add to this point that more and more employers, and this is across the board from some of the biggest corporations to small employers as well, not-for-profit or for-profit, they look now to the kind of volunteer work and the activities that young people do in the community for indicators of how much a young person is, you know, committed, is active. It sort of demonstrates important soft skills, or what are now considered critical skills, that are transferable into the workplace. So, you know, the kind of volunteer work that is out there that you need, you know, passionate young people to be part of, the more you can tell that compelling story, I think the more successful you'll be.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of volunteers, are the awards also open to volunteer recruitment, or is it just for employee recruitment?
It is also open to volunteer recruitment as well. I would recommend that you look closely at some of the descriptions of the actual categories, but we did actually have that come to mind when we were thinking about these new categories for the not-for-profit sector. So indeed, that's quite true for the not-for-profit kind of categories that we've put together.
Yeah, that's great. That's, I think, helpful for folks. And also, while we're on the topic of volunteers, we had some questions come up about recruiting volunteers through Charity Village and through TalentEgg. So maybe we should just quickly cover that again, that, volunteer positions can be posted for free on Charity Village. And Mary, I know there's options for cross-posting on TalentEgg. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two important points on the volunteers side. As I'm proud to say that Charity Village is the largest and most fulsome job posting site for volunteer positions in Canada. And so we encourage you to use Charity Village. It's an awesome platform to attract volunteers. If you have certain roles that that you think are more appropriate for young people, or you actively want to engage with young people, two things can happen. You either can come directly to us to post your volunteer positions, but the other thing you should be aware of is that we do take a feed of those volunteer positions, and we actually post them for free on our own site and promote them as part of what we give back. We encourage young people to volunteer, and we post the jobs that are appropriate to young people as well on our website. So you don't have to do the work of posting them in both places. Just if you do post them on Charity Village, we will likely pick them up in the feed and be able to include them on our job board for volunteer positions for young people.
Awesome. That's super helpful. And I know for all our time-strapped volunteer managers, that's really important. So that's great.
Right.
Okay, so just shifting gears a little bit. For an organization that's just starting out with some of this employer branding and maybe doesn't have a lot of capital, what would you suggest are some good first steps for them?
Well, I think certainly I've talked a little bit about some of the lower cost kind of platforms that they're probably already starting to use. So if they have a website, there is a way that you can create a page that potentially could be about careers within that organization. And then, you want to populate it with content that's about your own employees. And particularly if there's stories that they're prepared to tell, testimonials, for example, about why they want to work for that organization, and what they found so fulfilling about working there, along with images of your employees, is an easy first start, I think, if you have an online presence. Social media channels, of course, as I mentioned, the great thing about social media, and I have a background in television production, and I can tell you the best thing about them is that it's an inexpensive way to get some pretty darn good video assets of things very quickly and easily. And you can actually edit it simply in the Instagram stories themselves on the platform, or you can actually take that video that you shot and learn how to, and actually be able to edit using all sorts of different kinds of platforms that are out there, and often many of them are for free. So taking some of that content that you're doing about your connecting up the work that you do in the community with the people in your organization who are doing the work, and bringing a little bit more information about what motivates them, what makes them passionate, how they feel about it, is really a great story that you've got right at your fingertips. And it's really just about thinking about it when you're creating your content for some of the other purposes that you might be doing outreach for, to incorporate that as part of your employer branding. And over time, I think you'll find that it becomes sort of habitual. So when you're telling the story about some of the people that you've helped or the causes that you've supported, by picking up a quote or a clip from one of your employees who've been a part of that or a big part of that, it not only gives the shout out for that employee and makes them feel good about what the work that they've done, but it also really tells a really compelling story for any job seeker who is interested in having a job that provides them more than just a paycheck.
I think that's such a great way to reframe that whole idea, Mary, because so many organizations are already doing this type of work for their fundraising or their communications channels. So just, pulling it in a bit of a different direction seems like a no-brainer, and would be really a great way for not just reaching out to new talent, but also, like you were saying, for the employee engagement side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's really some of that content is already at many nonprofits' fingertips, and they're working with it every day for different purposes. And it's just really about tweaking it a little bit and keeping it as part of, if you have a social person who's in charge of your social media, to also have that, think about, okay, well, how do I tell the story of the people in our organization that are giving their time and their efforts and their passion and commitment to making this change? And, why do they do it? And that story about purpose-driven kind of work is really compelling to job seekers. And I don't think, to be honest, that a lot of nonprofits do enough of this, because it really is about, celebrating the incredible work that is being done in the sector, and also just spreading the word that, guess what, if you want to join an organization that has this passion at the core of everything that they do, come and join us. I mean, that's really the giving life to that real person behind the cause that is part of the team that makes it happen is really a compelling story and an important part of employer branding for not-for-profits.
Well, and it's interesting what you were saying earlier, Mary, about the corporate sector as well being competitors in this area. The nonprofit sector no longer has a monopoly on the careers with purpose, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot more careers coming up in corporate social responsibility kind of divisions of very large corporations and banks and institutions. But also, in terms of their employer branding, they recognize that young people are very, passionately engaged in giving back to the community and in causes that are more than just about that company's bottom line. So they are kind of taking a song from, or a phrase from your song, or a page from your book, in terms of being utilizing the kind of work that they do in the community to sort of bolster and enhance their own employer brand. But you should be doing that yourself, because that's really about what nonprofits do every day of their lives. And you've got those stories that are authentic and real and really engaging. So if you can look at it this way, a lot of for-profit corporations who literally are, your competition for talent, because every employer is your competition for talent, are already integrating that whole idea into their strategies for attracting top job seekers to their own organizations. But you already, nonprofits out there in Canada, have a great story to tell about what you do every single day, not just once a week as part of their community involvement. So I really think I would encourage not-for-profit employers to really think about how they can highlight this as part of their recruitment strategy.
Mm-hmm. And we've talked a lot today about Gen Y and Gen Z, but do you find that these employer branding tips also appeal across other demographics as well?
Yeah, if we look actually at the audience for Be Meaningful, for example, Being Meaningful it's a smaller sort of a community, because it's more of a startup. It hasn't been around as long as TalentEgg, who's been around for 12 years, or of course Charity Village, who's is celebrating its 25th anniversary this year. So the community is smaller, but a lot of the demographic that goes to Be Meaningful to learn more about organizations, a large portion of that are people who are sort of mid-career, who might just want to be more fulfilled in their work and are looking for organizations or roles within organizations that give more meaning to their life. Likewise, some of the job seekers might be taking early retirement, but still have tons of energy and lots of skills and experience that they want to bring to the table. So Be Meaningful has this very interesting mix of young people who are looking for careers with social impact, but also, more mature, more experienced workers who are also looking for opportunities to really feel more fulfilled in the work that they do.
Wonderful. Well, I see we're coming up on time here. Mary, did you have any last comments you'd like to leave the audience with?
Well, I just wanted to encourage the audience to really, number one, nonprofits are, they can certainly tell and toot their horn about some of the great work that they do, and so they should, but they should also, you know, blow their horn about the people within their organization and just how great it is to work at that organization. And, you know, my feeling is, as I've mentioned, you've got the best, most authentic story to tell. And it's really about putting together a strategy that helps you tell it in ways that reaches job seekers that you want to attract. And one way that you can help yourself do that is actually apply for one of the TalentEgg awards. We recognize that great work is being done in the non-for-profit sector in employee engagement, recruitment, employer branding, and we want to celebrate that excellence with you and give you an opportunity to shine within your sector, and also just help you build out your employer brand so you can attract more great people to your organization.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Mary, for a great presentation today. It's been a wonderful session, and we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. I know you have a busy day scheduled today, so thank you for this.
It was absolutely my pleasure. And if anybody has any questions, feel free. You've got my contact information. Reach out at any time, and I'd be thrilled to tell you about some ideas around making an application for our awards, or any advice that I might be able to offer in terms of employer branding.
Thank you. And on behalf of Charity Village and TalentEgg, thanks to all of our audience for joining us today. We do host dozens of free webinars every year at Charity Village, and I hope that we'll see you at more of our sessions this year in 2020. Our next free webinar is actually coming up next Thursday on February 27th. We'll be discussing practical recruitment tips for nonprofit managers, and there will be links in the email we send out later today to register for that if you're interested. There will also be links for more information on the TalentEgg Awards and some of the things Mary was discussing today. So thank you again to everyone for taking part in today's webinar. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.